As we prepare for Chag Matan Torah, for Chag Shavuot, let's take a look back at the first time Bnei Israel received the Torah together in the Midbar. Parashat Yitro and Sefer Shemot. We have a very famous Rashi that we've perhaps even grown up on, and the Rashi comes to mefaresh, to comment on a pasuk of Bnei Israel arriving at the Midbar, ready to receive the Torah. Vayisumer Refidim Vayvo Midbar Sinai Vayichanu B'Midbar Vayichan Sham Yisrael Neged Ahar. That they traveled from Refidim, they came to the Midbar, they camped in the Midbar, Vayichan Sham Yisrael Neged Ahar, and Bnei Israel camped Vayichan as one in towards the mountain, next to the mountain. And Rashi's very famous comment, Ki ish echad b'lev echad, that they were ready to receive the Torah, unified in one heart, one person. And he comments on this because there's an obvious switch from the plural of the pasuk to the singular. Vayisu, vayavau, vayichanu, and then vayichan sham Yisrael neged ahar. And they felt this sense of tremendous achdut. One has to wonder if we're meant to emulate the story of receiving the Torah. We're meant to feel that same sense of connection of ki ish echad b'lev echad. What was it about that camping next to the mountain that made them feel that sense of unprecedented achdut and unification and coming together as one? We have thousands and thousands of people traveling in a desert, emerging from years of slavery. They camp in front of a mountain, and boom, something about that mountain makes them feel we are one. Perhaps it's the view of the future. Perhaps it's the anticipation of what's going to come next, of embracing a common destiny that unites them. They know they're going to accept the Torah together. They know that something incredible is about to happen to them. And when embarking on a journey together, there's a sense of unity that comes from who else is on this journey with you, right? Whether you're getting on a plane and all the passengers on the plane, you're all in this together, and one crying baby is going to affect all of you, or embarking on a more real, monumental journey that when you look at the people that are going with you, whether it's you're in Israel, whether it's a community and a shul, whether whatever the story is, where you're working in a job and you're working in a team of people, there's certain people that you're about to do something together, so there's a sense of being united. But I think we also have to look at the events of the past. What happened that when they got there they felt united? I don't think it's enough to say that it was just the sense of the future, but there has to also be something that comes from this that comes from their common experiences that brought them to this sense of achdut, of unity. We look back in Parshat Beshalach, the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, emerging from a nation of slaves, of being slaves, of not being slaves, of freedom, of being released from bondage, of singing together, of praying together, of Shirat Hayam, of thanking God together, going to the Midbar, and then ending with the story of fighting Amalek, fighting that war. Then the next thing we know is that they come to camp in the Midbar. So there are very strong events that take place in Parshat Beshalach. Events of celebration, events of commemoration. And I think that we can't ignore those events when we think of this beautiful moment of everyone acting together as one and being together as one. Bnei Israel knew how to unite together as one at very difficult moments, at painful moments of slavery, at difficult, challenging moments of war, but also to know how to thank God as one. Of Az Yasher Moshe Bnei Israel Tashira Zot and Vatashar Miriam, that they knew how to thank God together as one, that they knew how to celebrate together as well. I think it's not coincidental that in the contemporary times, in our times, we have a very similar string of events that lead us to our own Matan Torah. Pesach, we have experienced the sense of freedom, of cherut, and if we understand cherut the way Rabbi Jonathan Sachs understands it, according to what he writes in his in the commentary in his Siddur of what cherut is, that Hebrew has two words for cherut. One is chofshi. Hebrew has two words, for freedom. One is chofshi, chofesh, and one is cherut. What is the difference between chofesh and cherut? And it's a very powerful understanding that I've mentioned many times before. Probably will continue to mention that chofesh is freedom from, cherut is freedom to. Chofesh is I once was a slave, I am no longer. Cherut is, well, what am I going to do with that freedom? And we emerge in Pesach from the sense of chofesh, so we are now free from Egypt. And as we go along, the days of Sfirat Omer, we unite together as a nation in strong days of commemoration, right? With Yom HaShoah, mourning the tragic past of the destruction, or the attempted destruction of European Jewry, Yom HaZikaron, We mourn. We knew that we had to fight together. Reminds us that we are a nation that fights together, and therefore we mourn as together as one. Those who are lost, those who have given their lives in battle, so for the rest of us to be able to live in this land. Yom Ha'atzmaut, we celebrate, we thank, we express our gratitude towards the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Yom Yerushalayim, we sing the praises of Halal, thanking God for the modern day miracle of Medina Israel and having Yerushalayim, and being able to be accessible to Yerushalayim. And then leading us up to Chirut, knowing what our freedom is too. Our freedom is to live in this land, and not only to be bonded together by a geographical piece of historical homeland, but of Shavuot, to receive the Torah, of knowing what that freedom is for. That freedom is not just to be free from oppressors, but it's in order to serve God, to be a nation of God, to represent God, to be an Or LaGoyim, and to be a nation that is established in a responsibility and an identity of tikkun olam, and of trying to perfect and make this world a better place. And perhaps it's going through those experiences together that made Bnei Israel feel united and should make us feel united as well. In the middle of all these days of Sfirat Omer, we have Lag BaOmer. And Lag BaOmer sort of causes us to pause and reminds us of the famous Gemara of Rabbi Akiva students who died in this terrible Magefa, this terrible plague. And the plague stopped in Lag BaOmer. And why did they die? What was the reason for this plague? And the Gemara tells us, they didn't respect one another. Now, is that a level to aspire to? And I think it's not even a level to aspire to. I think it's the opposite. I think it's a level to start from. Shalom hagu kavod zelazeh is the most basic way that one should interact with their fellow Jew. You don't have to. The Gemara does not say that Bnei Israel at that time, or Rabbi Akiva students, weren't marrying into one another, or dressing the same, or thinking the same, or acting the same, or looking the same, or praying the same, or commemorating the same. It's just the most basic thing possible. Shalom hagu kavod zelazeh. They didn't respect one another. Of course there are differences. There will always be differences. Of course there's differences in outlook. There will always be. We're not meant to be a homogeneous society. But within our differences, can we respect one another? Within our differences, the fact that you and I may pray differently, you and I may see things differently, you and I may view God's word differently and Torah Judaism differently. But Shalom hagu kavod zelazeh, do we not respect one another? Can we not respect each other? Rabbi Akiva students died not because of the level they couldn't aspire to, but a level they couldn't start from. And it's that idea of empathy, of being a part of something beyond myself, and beyond my own time zone even, that causes that sense of achdut. If we want to feel united, we have to leave the comfort zone of me, myself, and right now, and connect to that concept of accepting and respecting those fellow Jews who may not be exactly like me, but I have kavod towards them, and I accept them, and I don't look upon them with disdain or comment on them, or worse, go to extreme measures of verbal abuse or whatnot. Unfortunately, in Eretz Yisrael, here we are, the year 2013, and Rosh Chodesh Sivan, we had a terrible scene at the Kotel. It wasn't even a security scene; it was a milchemet achim, and it was a fight amongst brothers. Whether you agree or disagree with the fact that women should or should not be wearing a talis at the Kotel, should have been done, should not have been done. What certain people did that morning at the Kotel with verbal abuse and physical abuse towards the women who were praying in their own way, whether you think it's a good idea or a bad idea, that was just a loss of respect. That was a Shalom hagu kavod zelazeh. Didn't only happen in Rabbi Akiva's time; it happens in our time as well. We read Megillat Ruth, the story of on Shavuot this morning, the story of very unusual story of a very powerful relationship between a daughter-in-law and her mother-in-law. And it's a story that takes place in the days of the Shoftim, and when after this terrible tragedy of Elimelech and his son's dying, and Naomi wants to go back to Beit Lechem, and she said, and her daughter-in-laws, Ruth and Orpah, stay with her, and they say, no, we want to be with you, we want to stay with you. And she says, no, there's this little argument back and forth at the end. Orpah, as we know, Orpah leaves, and Ruth stays together with her mother-in-law. And Ruth delivers a very powerful, passionate, and beautiful speech that is echoed till this very day. And she says to her in Parak Aleph, in Pasuk Tetvav, ותאמר רות אל תבכי בי לא עזבך לשוב מאחרייך כי על אשר תלכי אלך באשר תליני אלין עמך עמי ואלוהייך אלוהי באשר תמות תמות ושם אקבר. Don't allow me to leave you. Where you go I shall go. Where you sleep I shall sleep. Your nation is my nation and your God is my God. Amech ami ve'elohayich Elohai. That's what Shavuot is. Pesach is Amech ami. And on Shavuot we say Elohayich Elohai. For the last 7 weeks we've formed ourselves as a nation. For the last 7 weeks we've worked together on becoming one, on hopefully being able to combat Shalom Hagu Kavod Zelazeh, hopefully working on Ahavat Chinam and Ahavat Echim instead of Melchemet Achim. Hopefully we mourned together on Yom HaShoah and on Yom HaZikaron we felt the pain, and hopefully on Yom HaTzmaut and Yom HaShalayim we felt the celebration and we felt this incredible sense of Hakaras HaTov towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then on Shavuot we take it one step further, Elohai Elohai, and we accept upon ourselves the Torah and the spiritual component of Am Yisrael, not just the graphical one and not just the national one. After Ruth gives this famous, such a beautiful speech, the Megillah tells us, okay, so Naomi couldn't turn it down, and it says in Pasuk Yited, "Vatelachna shnehem ad bo'ana bet lachem," and they went together. There's a beautiful midrash in Ruth Rabbah, Parsha Gimel, that says, "Amar Rabbi Abahu, bo ureh kama chavivim gerim lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu." See how beloved gerim, converts, are in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kevan shenitna da'atali t'gayer, because Ruth expressed a ratzon, a desire to stay with Naomi. Hishva HaKatuv LaNaomi. Hishva HaKatuv LaNaomi, the Katuv, the Megillah connects her, they connect them as one, as equals, with the two words, Vatelachna Shtehem. The fact that the Megillah says Vatelachna Shtehem, they went together, shows that in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Naomi and Ruth were the same one, were the same person. Naomi, who was a born Jew, Ruth, who had expressed a desire to remain and to be a part of the Jewish nation, and that was enough for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's why the Megillah writes Vatelachna Shtehem. That this sense of the fact that Ruth wanted to be a part of something, that she felt empathy towards her mother-in-law. It wasn't a story of being exposed to a national greatness, and she wanted to be part of. She wanted to jump on the bandwagon. But Ruth is a story of an individual who is exposed to another individual, and so to and so forth and so on. That leads to this incredible relationship between Ruth and Naomi, between Ruth and Boaz, ultimately leading in the grandparentship of the Davidic dynasty. Which is amazing if you think about it. That David HaMelech's roots, pun intended, that David HaMelech's roots are, we know they're a little bit murky. The story of Moab and the story of Lot and his daughter, the story of Yehuda and Tamar, who bring about Peretz, who bring about eventually about Boaz, and our story of Ruth and Ploni Ammoni, and then Boaz. So he comes from there's a lot of weird things in the background. That in our world today we would say, you're suggesting this person for a shidduch or that person for a job. They don't have yichus, they don't have this. I don't know. Did David HaMelech have such great yichus? I don't think so. Did Ruth HaMoaviyah have such great yichus? Probably not. We're so much harsher today on acceptance and respect. And I don't know if Ruth wouldn't have been able to marry her son off in many communities today, in Eretz Yisrael and in Chutz La'aretz. Shavuos, Matan Torah, reminds us, and I think Chazal wanted us to remember, that the story of Ruth is the story of someone choosing to be a part of us. It's the story of a choice that one makes, and it's also the story of society accepting those choices. The story of accepting someone who is different, someone who is unusual, someone who has a different story. That idea of Ruth, of the Midrash giving such praise to Ruth for wanting to go with Naomi and staying with her throughout the whole time, or of Ruth and Orpah together wanting to be with Naomi and then Orpah sort of changing her mind along the way. I found a very interesting thought that I think connects very much to this. The Avodah Yisrael, the Maggid of Kazhnitz, talks about the Midrash that is brought around the time of Matan Torah. That when the Torah tells us, the pasuk that we read before, that Vayisu Refidim, Vayivo Midbar Sinai, why does the Torah connect their traveling from Refidim to their arrival in Sinai? And Rashi quotes the Midrash that says, Mekish nesiatan merefidin lebiatam lamidbar. Ma biatan b'tshuva, af nesiatan b'tshuva. Why does the Torah in one pasuk mention there they came from Rephidim and they went to the Midbar? Because there was a connection in the way they left and the way they arrived. That they were both done in a sense of tshuva. The Bnei Israel felt this sense of repentance and returning to God. And the Voda Yisrael, the Maggid of Kashin's comments on this, and it says, Dinei kol dam Yisrael, en lecha achat she'en lo sha'at shuka v'ava v'torut l'makom baruch hu. And there's no person that doesn't have like a spiritual awakening now and then. Every Jew at every point, at random points in his life, has a spiritual awakening. Wants to be part of something bigger. Wants to be part of something greater. Wants to be more connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And as he goes along his journey, he forgets it. He neglects it. He loses a sense of passion. Every single one of us is familiar with this, where you lose your passion once you originally start from something. And you go through your life, and then you forget that you once had that passion. So the Avodah Yisrael says that Midrash is saying the Bnei Yisrael left Rephidim, right? They had a mission. They were ready to receive the Torah, right? When they left the Midbar, they left Mitzrayim, they were united. And what's amazing is that when they arrived at the home of Midbar Sinai, they still felt that excitement. That they didn't let that excitement die down or wear down. That they still were able to continue that feeling of passion and energy. And I think that's very much connected to the story of Ruth. That Ruth and Orpah felt something, that they want to stay with Naomi, and then life, whatever, Naomi said this and that, and Orpah said, you know what, yeah, forget it. And then Ruth stayed with her. And because Ruth stayed with her and expressed that desire to be a part of her, and to be a part of it, then and she's privileged and she's destined to what she is privileged and destined to. And maybe that's one of the things that we, a very easy goal for us, not easy goal, it's a hard goal, but it's easy to relate to, of Matan Torah. Do we really complete the goals that we set out to complete? Do we really are able to sustain that level of energy and excitement? And it's very hard. It's very, very hard to uphold that same excitement on Yom Ha'atzmaut every day of the year. No. Are we still thankful today for Eretz Yisrael the way we were on Hay Year? Of course. But it feels different. Because it's not that moment. But I think the Torah itself gives us insight into how this is meant to be. The Torah tells us that Vayichan Sham Yisrael Neged Ahar. When they camped, they felt united. The unity didn't necessarily emerge at the moment of singing together, or it did, rather, meaning it emerged at the moment of singing together, but it wasn't really concretized in the hearts of the people. Right? At that moment, there was an obvious sense of unity. At the moment of fighting with Amalek, we were fighting together. But when it concretized in their hearts was Vayichad, when they camped, when they stopped moving. When all the excitement stopped. It was about to start up again in Har Sinai, but when they camped, and when they slowed down, and when they got to know each other, not on the battlefield, and not on the shores of the Yam Suf, when they camped, and they realized who they were hanging out with, that's when they had this sense of achdut. That's when they had this sense of respecting one another. That's when they established that concept of linhog kavod ze lezeh, that we are different, but we can respect one another, and we can live in the same society together, and we can accept the Torah together, and if we can die together, then we can live together. And that's what we need to relate to more now. The secret of how we camp. The secret of not living in those bigger moments. The secret of living in 3 time zones together. Of commemorating the past. Of being a part of the past and being united because of the past. But also celebrating the present and embracing the present. And making sure that we are working on a better future for the Jewish people. Every morning in davening, we say V'harevna, Berkat Torah, V'harevna, Shem Elokeinu et V'Tortecha b'finu v'v'yamcha beit Yisrael v'niyeh nachar v'tzetzeinu v'tzetzeimcha beit Yisrael kulanu yodei shemecha. And we hope that those who come from us and the future generations of Am Yisrael will be kulanu yodei shemecha. Everyone will know God's name. I think that gives each one of us as individuals, in whatever we are doing in the world, a renewed sense of responsibility every morning when we say that it's important to us that the future people, that the future are kulanu yodei shemecha, that they know who you are. And by us, each one of us as individual, in the workforce or in the community or in the shul or in the home, if we are able to be a committed Jew, if we're able to be a Jew that is nohei kavod ze lezeh, that respects one another, if we're able to feel empathy towards one another, right? Root comes from the outside, and it's the community that has to learn to accept her. If we're and it's a reminder to us: are we really accepting all of those out there that may not be the natural members of the community? But if we represent as individuals a living Kiddush Hashem, hopefully the people around us will become kuloni yodei shemecha. We'll also be exposed to God, and we'll want to be exposed to the godly concept. And as we approach Chag Shavuot, as we approach Matan Torah, and we get ready to prepare ourselves for the Chag of Matan Torah, let's re-emphasize and live with a renewed vision of Amech Ami, of Elohayach Elohai. Not only are we bound together on a national level, but on a spiritual level as well, and not only Ben Adam Lamakom, but also Ben Adam L'Chavero, of how we interact, how we interact towards one another, in front of one another, about one another. And if we can learn that secret of camping together in unity and respecting the differences, then we will be zocha to be makabel the Torah. We should have a Chag Shavuot Sameach and a wonderful day of Kabbalat HaTorah, and know that it's not only in this one day that we are makabel the Torah, but in the future days when we are on the level of vayichan, of camping, on the day-to-day life, the day where we don't see the fireworks, we don't see those amazing sights at Har Sinai, can we still feel that sense of motivation and connection? We should be zocha to feel that sense of connection, of motivation, of empathy, of love, and of respect. Chag Shavuot Sameach.